Hello and welcome to issue number 18 of AZAAZ. That is Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho, the show where we aggregate all of your questions that you ask us over on Club Zenatta, here on YouTube, really anywhere else you can get it to us. We split them up amongst ourselves and have some fun answering them for you here in this video. So with me, we've got kind of a couple guests on the show today. We've got Brett out on a cruise with his parents celebrating their 65th wedding anniversary. Josh has jury duty, so a little less luxurious, but we wish him well nonetheless. So with me, I have a special roundup here. I've got Lucas Santana and Landon McCluskey from our consulting team. And then, well, I made it. And then I've got Greg Belknap, the director of Zoho development here at Zenatta, the illustrious, the amicable, the bearded, the man himself. So without any further ado, let's get into our first question.
Cool. So Abhinav Reddy asked on YouTube, the Zoho Flow product overview 2023. How can I integrate Zoho People with Zoho Forms? So as any Zoho Forms integration with any app in the Zoho app, in the Zoho universe or otherwise, you're probably going to need to use Zoho Flow. They don't carry any API. Zoho Forms don't carry any workflow capabilities or any development interface. So you're probably going to need to use Zoho Flow anyway. And then for the Zoho People part, you can either use the code blocks that come with Zoho Flow, or you can just write some functions and create some beautiful code with the Zoho People API.
And it looks like there's a decent amount of different pre-built options, create employee, create this, create that over in People. So you very well might be able to get away without using any code for this.
Pretty much, yeah. It's the no code option for Zoho. So might be good exploring it.
Alrighty, next question here comes from Josh, coming in from jury duty, just to add a question here for the show. This was asked over on Club Zenatta in the Q&A section. Post title is Recurring Revenue in CRM Deals. So a few years back, you put together this video, and it's linked to a video from 2020 where we tied together Zoho subscriptions and Zoho CRM deals. Do you have an updated version of this that you're using? We're already using Zoho subscriptions for most of our numbers, but it would be nice to have everything updated across the Zoho verse. I like that. I'm going to steal that. Is there a simple way to get subscriptions to talk to CRM? To the deals in CRM, so everything is up to date. Thanks. Honestly, Josh, we do just about that same implementation. We always make adjustments to things over time. Like back then, I think we did a pretty weird method where I think, Greg, this was back when we were still creating a deal for each invoice, which we kind of phased out of doing. So we've made some adjustments to this integration over time where like nowadays, Josh, I would recommend having like one deal for the subscription sale as a whole, and then a child record for like subscription payments and log against those. This was back when we used to create multiple deals for those things. So you have minor updates there just about like where the data goes in CRM, but honestly, not too much that you really need to change methodology wise. You just have the workflow triggers in subscriptions and the function to write those across to CRM. But it should be pretty similar to what we had back then.
Yeah, and I think it makes it better now the way that you described it, Tyler. That now that we have a deal does not equal one invoice. Now, many invoices, many deals. It makes it really easy now that a deal represents a subscription, and then over in subscriptions or books or wherever it is that you want to spend your time working with the invoices, you can link those multiple invoices back to that parent deal. So that helps keep everything all connected and in line. This one comes from another YouTube comment on our Exploring Common Use Cases for Zoho Flow. Flaky asks, I'm currently using a Zoho CRM trigger in a Zoho Flow to post data to a default third-party app from the Flow gallery. It works great. However, the third-party app's company would like us to hit a different endpoint URL and use newer JSON strings for our specific needs. Is there a way to create a new custom app in Flow or possibly clone to then slightly modify an existing Zoho app from the gallery to suit our specific needs. Hope I'm not overlooking something obvious here. Love your in-depth coverage and explanation of the Zoho ecosystem. Well, the good news is, Flaky, that you definitely can utilize the connection that already exists in Zoho Flow for that third-party app that already exists in the gallery. And as long as that connection contains the scopes that you need, you can just reuse that same connection. So I actually have a screen share for this. This is pulling from one of my sort of side hustles. I run an improv comedy group, and we use Slack to talk. We use Slack to talk to each other, and then we use Zoho Creator to keep track of our ticket sales. So we have a flow here that whenever a creator record gets added, it sends a message to everybody in Slack that we just sold another group of tickets. The Slack options inside of the action blocks were limited to creating channels, fetching users, but one of the key things that I needed to be able to get a list of all the channels or a list of all the messages that have happened in that channel, and ZoFlow doesn't have those action blocks. So what I did was I created a custom function that I called Slack API. And so the way that my function works here is that rather than making a custom function for every single API call that I'm going to do, I just have this one, and I'm going to need to make it a little bit smaller so you can see the top of the window. There we go. So I have my inputs of the API method or the API endpoint, the method that my API call is going to be, get, post, push, etc., and then the parameters that's going to go into that call. Then I generate my URL or what endpoint I'm going to hit based on those inputs. And then you can't programmatically set the type of invoke URL you're doing, which is why you have to pass. I have passing in this HTTP method and then a bunch of if-else statements of saying, if it's a get, do a get, if it's a post, do a post, if it's a put, or if it's a delete, and then to just return to me whatever the response is for that. Then I'm able to use that single custom function in a few different spots. So for example, here I have it where I'm listing the channels that are in my Slack organization. So I have my output variable of list channels. My API method is I'm hitting the conversations.list endpoint in the Slack API. It's a get. And then I have some parameters here that I've included in sort of a string at the end of a URL format. And then I can actually use it again, another spot over here, listing my messages. Again, just need to change the API method to conversations.history, and now it's a post. And again, those params. So this way, I'm able to use those APIs in a more custom way, but without having to, write function after function after function after function. So there you go. That is. Oh, and in order to use that connection when you are in creating your invoke URLs, come down here to My Connections. You should see the connection for whatever your third party is. In this case, mine is Slack. Then under there, you got View Details, and here you have that link name. And if you scroll down, actually, it'll give you an example of what an invoke URL using that connection would look like. So in this case, this is me making an API called Slack. I just need to include this link name here, so you Slack. And that's it. That is how you can take a pre-existing connection that you have with a third-party system that ZoFlow is integrated with, but how to hit custom API endpoints with it.
Very solid answer. Some very flaky bandwidth.
Yeah. And that last bit is very, very helpful, having it right there in the code to be able to find the connection details. So All right, this one's over to me. This is from Luis Rodriguez. After watching CRM Zen Show episode 258, say you want an API evolution, which was a lot of fun. He asked, can you clarify possible use cases for the Zoho Desk custom lookup fields? Since tickets already show the name of the contact and account, I'm not seeing what advantage this new feature adds. We're new to Zoho Desk, so clearly I'm missing something. Well, Lewis, it's a little confusing if you're not used to it, especially if you're new, because yes, on tickets it already shows contacts, it already shows accounts. And when you go to create a new lookup field, your choices are contacts, accounts, and tickets. So it's not like you can look up to other apps or anything like that. But what it does do, there's a few things. So you can have it filtered so you can see relevant options. So say you want to find a specific account by location. You can have a field that says the location on every account, and then you can filter that lookup by location. So you could say, okay, for this ticket, I want to be able to see only the accounts in Boston, per se. So you can do that. You can also search or have those search results like ordered. So you can say that, okay, when I search in these results, I want to have them pulled up by the most recently created accounts rather than alphabetically. And then you can also have up to 5 fields pre-filled. So right now, the only fields that, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, that pre-fill on tickets, when you use a lookup field, if you select an account, it'll pop a contact in there. Or maybe it's just if you select a contact, it'll put an account. But either way, it doesn't pre-fill anything else. So this way you can, if you are choosing an account, you can have different account fields pre-filled on your ticket, and vice versa. So that's really nice. Again, up to 5 of those is all, but it's better than 0 for sure. So, and then the last thing is you can add, and this is a feature that's been in CRM for years. So in CRM, when you go to have a drop down on a lookup field, you click at the bottom, create new, whatever you're looking up, if it's not in there, and then you just create the record and you don't leave the screen in desk. Up until now, you've had to leave the screen, create the account if it didn't exist, or the contact, and then refresh your page when you're creating the ticket for it to show up. And so you lose everything. So now they have it in there where if you don't see the account or contact or whatever you're looking for, you just click on create new. It'll bring up the dialog, you create it, and you don't have to leave the page. So again, it's not giving you massive functionality as far as being able to look up tons of new stuff, but a lot of things that are very, very good enhancements to it, for sure.
Wish they would bring some of those features to the native one, like the quick create. I feel like that should just be there on the default lookup. Yeah. Honestly, a couple of those, so it would be nice.
It's a little frustrating that it's not, I'm not going to lie.
Next question here. So this is asked by Donor Signs Incorporated over on YouTube. On an old video we made, Zoho CRM dynamic proposals using FormStack. That's from back in 2022. Little context for the question. This video is focusing on having sections in a proposal that show or hide themselves based on logic on what data is on that record. So Donor Sign asks, can you add sections if you do not have FormStack? Good question. In 2020, no, you could not add the dynamic sections that show and hide themselves. And that's actually the big reason that we were using FormStack. Probably 2021-ish, give or take, is when Zoho CRM's mail merge added the if-then statements and controls on documentation. And at that point, we just started doing everything in Zoho. So we actually don't use FormStack anymore internally. Everything we do now for document generation is just using Zoho Writer, the CRM mail merge, logical controls with if-else statements, and then some deluge code. And that'll actually do all of the dynamic data management on the document for you. So yeah, good question. No, you don't really need it anymore. You can just do it all through the CRM.
Awesome. All right, back to me on this one. Question from Ben Wagner this is in Clubs and Out on the Q&A for AZAAZ, so specifically for this show. You're welcome. All right, so Ben says, I want to have my users save all our CRM attachments into WorkDrive, but unfortunately Zoho doesn't have a native integration. I found the Marketplace extension, but I don't like the file structure it creates because it has unnecessary folders for my business, and I'm in real estate, and I'm looking for the files to be stored by the address, which they have as their deals. The current behavior, which I'll show you here in a second on a screen share, is basically creating the deal folders in associated deals under the contacts or under the accounts. So he said he's able to create a custom button or function to create a folder where he wants it, but the extension still puts an empty associated deals folder inside. Additionally, the bigger issue is that my users upload files directly into the widget. The folder gets created using the default logic and location. Is there any way to modify the behavior of it or any other path? Okay, so what he's talking about, what Ben's talking about, is this extension. I'll share my screen here. Hold on. Okay, this extension here within the CRM, and what it does is on your deals, accounts, contacts, leads, and campaigns, and you can choose which ones to activate or not. It'll create a work drive folder. So there's a team folder, Zoho CRM work drive that's created, and then it'll create those. So under deals, here's work drive folder test 3, and that's actually the name of a deal that I have. So it's a folder for each deal, for each account, etc. Right now, what it does, when he creates a deal, it automatically creates a folder for the deal, but it's under accounts, under the account and associated deals. And it's not where you would expect it to be, under the deals folder. And so he's wondering, how do I get it to the deals folder? And even if I do, which he created something that he could do that, how do I get it to show up in the widget? So the other part of the extension is on the deal itself, which here's a deal. When you go to Zoho Work Drive down here, there is a widget where this the program's not really wanting to show up since we're doing this recording, but basically here it'll show the folder, any folders within it or any files, and it's a nice widget where you have different options here, and it's great. But what he's saying is that he can create a folder in the right place, but uploading to this widget puts it in the wrong place because that's where it already existed. So there's a few ways that you can work around this. None of them are ideal. When you create a deal, it will put that deal folder in the associated deal. So one thing you can do is when you create a deal, just don't put an account name in there, and then you create it and then put the account name in there afterwards. And what that's going to do is it'll create it in the deals folder itself. So that's one workaround, but again, not ideal. The next one is to create a workflow or function that moves the deal folder from the account folder to deals. So you've already got one, Ben, where it creates it in the right place, but it leaves that other one there. So what you could do is create a function that moves it, or you can just turn off the create portion of the extension, which when you go to your workflows, this is what the extension creates. It's for leads, contacts, and deals, and you can just turn them on and off. And if you turn these off, you can create your own functions that will essentially create templated folders. So what you can do is in Work Drive, create a folder that's default. So if you have additional folders you want, so you're in real estate. So for instance, if you want a folder for each deal that's for listing photos, one for contracts, one for floor plans, whatever it may be, you can have a templated folder here. And then your function is just going to create a copy of that where you want it. And what specifically you need to do to be able to have your folder show up in the widget here on the deal page or on the account or whatever, there's a couple of fields. Well, let's find them here. So there's Work Drive ID and Work Drive URL. The extension just takes the URL, I believe. It has both here, but it takes the URL, and whatever that URL is, that is the folder that shows up here. So technically, I could put the URL for some other random folder here, and that's what's going to show up in the extension. So when you're doing any function or anything like that, make sure you update the folder ID and the folder URL to the correct folder, and then it's going to show it. So even if there's still a folder for this deal under the associated accounts part of Work Drive, as long as you have these pointing to the correct folder you have, you'll be good to go. So you could leave the functionality you have that you're creating that deal folder, as long as you add to that function just to update these fields with the correct URL and ID for the folder you want, and then it'll show up here. So I know it's a long explanation, but couple of decent workarounds. Some of my clients, if I
know
use
some of that.
what's that?
I said I'll own up to it. I actually didn't know some of that. I didn't know you could turn off the create workflows in the work drive extension. Yeah, that's nice. And then you could just make the folders however you want. And as long as they get back to those fields, then you get the nice embed widget.
Yeah,
I've actually done that for several clients. It's kind of nice.
That's the real key, is overriding that that URL and ID field, because actually if you just so like your first option that you said, Landon, of just don't associate an account. Problem is that if you do associate an account later, the work drive folder, once you upload something, the work drive extension actually says, "Oh, I see that you now have an account on this deal. Don't you worry. I'm going to go ahead and automatically move that so that you don't have to." So, so you have to, your function will have to overwrite that URL every time, so that it, or actually it doesn't have to overwrite the URL every time. It just has to overwrite that URL once to point its permalink to that other folder, because otherwise the extension is going to keep shuffling those subfolders around behind the scenes.
You can just remember to turn off the workflow that moves it around as well. So might be an option.
Cool. Well, I learned something on this episode of AZAAZ. How about that? Let me see here. I think next question. Yeah, this one's for me. This comes from Hannah over on a YouTube video called Zoho Work Drive Team Folders Tutorial from 2021. So question here is, I made a team folder, but it won't let me delete it and gives me this message. The test team folder is associated with Zoho projects /bug tracker. To delete the team folder in Work Drive, you must disassociate it from Zoho projects and bug tracker. I do not know what this is referring to and cannot find it anywhere. Send help. All right, help is here. Here we are. We wrote in on our steeds. So what this is, and someone actually gave me a screenshot in here so what this is essentially is in Zoho projects, it has a connection to Zoho Work Drive, and it can connect a few different ways. You can have it where Zoho projects creates its own team folders for each project. And I think you can also associate an existing team folder with a project. So what you actually need to do is you need to start this process inside of Zoho projects and disassociate that folder or any files that are in that folder from that project first. So they could be attached. The tricky thing is if it's attached at a file level, it'll probably be under documents and it'll be easy to disassociate it. If it's attached at a file, it could be anywhere, right? It could be attached to a task. It could be really anywhere in there. You could assume that it's going to have like the matching project name. But yeah, all you're gonna have to do is just hunt down the connection. Somewhere there is a file or a folder connected to a project in Zoho projects, and you'll just need to disassociate it there. That should be good to go. Delete it. Hopefully.
You should be able to just search for it in Zoho projects and it should come up. All right, this next question comes from Beat Z, a longtime asker here at the AZAAZ show. Beat Z over at Club Zenatta asks, I'm still using our old newsletter tool as I can't check out whether email deliverability of Zoho campaigns is as good as our old system. But at least I want to import all the data into the CRM. As long as I'm not using Zoho campaigns for sending out mailings, would you just add a campaign in CRM for each newsletter? Or would you import the data into Zoho campaigns? There is no connector between our old newsletter tool and Zoho, so we're going to have to use API, the old system, to create all the CSV files that are going to be imported. The question is where to import it. And the answer is you had it right in the first part. Sounds like if you're not using campaigns to send any mailing, no point in putting it there. Just do a direct import into that campaigns module in the CRM to get all that info in there. That's a nice and easy one for you.
Just a note. You said that he's a long time asker. I now think that we should have Club Zenatta awards so people could win askers. Like Hey, been nominated for the Oscars. I like that. Anyway.
Hey, it's an Oscar.
I do like that too.
Yeah, so Daniel Arambula asked on Club Z, the Q&A for AZAAZ. I hope this message finds you well. Well, it did. I want to extend my congratulations for the exceptional work you do in keeping us updated and optimized with all things Zoho. You're welcome. In our CRM system, we heavily rely on contact roles within opportunities. However, we face a challenge when it comes to pinning tickets to the CRM. Currently, CRM only allows pinning tickets from main contact associated with an opportunity. I have reached out to CRM and desk support, but haven't found a solution. Do you have any creative ideas to overcome this limitation? My goal is to view the opportunity in the CRM with specific tickets pinned to it, regardless of the contact associated with the ticket. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I appreciate your help or suggestions you can offer. So this one might be a good solution for the XML related lists. So you might have a lot of tickets in desk that are associated with a bunch of contacts that are associated with the deal. So what you might need to do is just create an XML related list for to show those tickets. So you inside of the deal, you need some custom code for that. But inside of the deal, and we have code shares for this, so you might find some help in Club Z. You might just need to create analytics pivot view, a report of some sort, and use that data to relate back to the deal contacts. And that might just give you links to the desk ticket and everything else that you might need. So that's where I would look for. That's what I would look to. And you guys have any other ideas for this?
No, I mean,
I think
XML is
sounds like a
always
good one.
good. Gives you a lot of control, right? Because you could say, hey, give me all the tickets from any contact on the account from that deal. You could say only the contact roles. You could even filter like only tickets of a certain type, should show up in this list. I would say the only downside, Daniel, is that they won't be able to show all the info from the desk ticket. So it'll give you like subject line, date, the primary contact, and like a link, right, Lucas? Like a link to check out the full ticket over inside of Zoho Desk. But yeah, XML related list, I think it's becoming, he said any creative solutions. I almost don't know if they're creative for us now because we do them so much at this point, because they're a big cheat code for anything like this. I want this data to show up in CRM, but there isn't like a clear path to like actually sync it,
And you don't want a module for it and like back and forth syncs and all that. So related lists is like the XML related lists, the way to go, right?
All right. This one is from Jennifer Denup. After watching the YouTube video, How to Link Zoho Creator Forms to Zoho CRM, she says, at 8 minutes, 5 seconds into the video, why did you have to click on the related list for the item to appear or have the little, one record number next to it? Was it just timing thing, or do they not load like others? So in this one, Josh was just showing adding a related list from a creator form onto a CRM record. And then on the left-hand side, you always have, attachments, contacts, whatever. And it'll have a number next to it showing how many of those you have. In the video, he pulled up the record and then said, okay, now if you click down here, it'll show you the record. When he was clicking on that left-hand side, it was really just to navigate and automatically have it pulled down to that part of the page. So it'll show up there regardless. It wasn't like he was having to reload it. It was just kind of a timing thing. And since Creator's external to CRM, it might take just a little bit longer for it to load than if you were creating a record on another module within CRM. So just kind of a timing thing.
Yeah, because those related lists, like we talked about, they're pulling information at that moment. So depending on where the related list is on the page, the related list usually won't actually like load itself until you scroll down far enough on the page that you actually can see the related list. That way, just in case if you're loading up your page and you don't scroll down, why waste a bunch of API credits loading a bunch of information that you're not actually looking at? So that's so that's the process behind why when you scroll down, you might see a little buffering before the lists come up.
And Lloyd asked on the Club Z forum for AZAAZ. I'm using Zoho CRM with some custom module through my Zoho One subscription to replace a database application which was built using SharePoint tables. That part is going well. The part which isn't going well is the reporting, which in SharePoint application is done using Excel, primarily pivot tables. Have tried the pivot tables in Zoho CRM reports, Zoho Analytics, Zoho Sheets, and even looked at the new Zoho tables that I didn't know up until today, but can't get even close to the very refined pivot table appearance I can achieve in Excel. There aren't very many records and they don't change too often. I would be interested in your thoughts about how to handle this. It looks like that you benefit from some custom SQL in this case. You might have some weird association between records, and that's throwing off the native pivot views. So maybe creating and looking up tables using a SQL. It's very powerful, very flexible. You can do a lot with it, and we use it a lot. So that might be the way to go for you to do the reporting that you're looking for. The pivot views in analytics are very good, and they're pretty similar to the pivot views in Excel. You can even do a bit more in there. You can filter a little bit better. But yeah, if you're like hooked to the Excel look, you might look into Zoho Sheet if that's your kind of thing. But I would totally invest into creating like custom SQL and pivot views. I think you're going to be very satisfied.
Yeah, it's all just about how's the data look, right? Like what's the output report need to look like, right? And then work backwards to figure out, does the data look the right way to create that? And if not, right, build out the SQL.
So, and you can style the pivot to make the pivot view to make it look a little bit better, a little bit more like Excel. You're not going to achieve the exact same look, but you're still going to be able to do like a pretty good job and on reporting everything you need.
All right, and our last question comes from a comment on a YouTube video about our Shopify to Zoho inventory integration automation tutorial. Oliver asks, hello there. I'm trying to sync Zoho and Shopify. We do have a Zoho account, but when I click on connect, it tells me to create an account. So I do have a screen share for this one. Again, using my my improv group's Zoho and Shopify instance. What Oliver is describing is he got to this point of adding the Zoho inventory app to Shopify that creates the connection. And when adding the app, it's redirecting, and for some reason, it's got the sign up for Zoho inventory asking you to create your account. So somehow, Oliver got to this screen by following this while not being logged into Zoho. And quick and easy solution for this is I'll just open up another tab and I will go to Zoho inventory and then I will sign in. And now that I am signed in, if I just refresh this page, boom. Now it says, awesome, you're already signed in, and I can click on Connect Shopify. So just a weird little bug that for some reason your web browser doesn't recognize you as being logged into Zoho, so just log in another tab, refresh the page. Should be good to go.
Yay, teams.
Alrighty, well, that we brought that one in under an hour. I'm kind of surprised there were a lot of questions here today. Thanks again, Lucas and Landon, for joining. No thanks to you, Greg, because you're here every week anyways, so it's now just the expectation. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and wrap up for this week. If you do want to get in touch with myself or any of the other kind gentlemen here at Zenatta, head over to zenatta.com and click on Book a Meeting. On the website is also where you'll find complete episodes of our podcast, The CRM Zen Show, where we cover all the news in the world of Zoho every single week. Be sure, if you want that news delivered to your inbox every morning, to subscribe as well to our newsletter.
And you can go to club.zenatta.com to join our online community where we get most of our questions for this show, as well as providing the most in-depth answers. We also have code shares on there every week, which you're bound to get some good use out of. And if you want to train your team on the CRM, or I believe we do have a new
Project
training
is
out.
Project is in early
Project
access
is out
right
now as well. Go to zenatta.com/training and you can get your whole team trained up in lickety-split time. And also, we would appreciate if you would subscribe to us here on YouTube, leave us a like. You can also follow us on your choice of podcast app. We're also on LinkedIn if you're a stock bro. But follow us however you can so you can get all the best up-to-date Zoho info.
All right, without any more, let's wrap up here.